Rads. Bah. Welcome to Pandora, kiddos, or should I say, welcome to the wasteland, because today I'm not doing a Borderlands prop. A few months ago, I got one of these Spirit Halloween Fallout 4 Pip-Boy models, and I've been meaning to do a weathering job on it for a while, so might as well get started. I've seen a lot of different weathering and paint jobs done on these, and what I want to do is borrow some of those techniques and also add a couple of my own, and I'm curious to see how they work. One thing I want to do to this, I haven't seen anyone else do, and I don't know why. Well, I kind of know why. We'll get to that later in the video. Right now, what I want to do is disassemble it and coat it all in a flat black, because this plastic is super cheap. It's really thin, it's not even opaque. So I'm gonna cover it in a flat black and then in this khaki color again. Not khaki, what's it called? Hold on. Nutmeg, right. The first thing I'm going to do is pull off these stickers. Now, since I don't have a cool stencil printer, I'm gonna try to save these stickers. This one's trash, so I'm gonna practice on this. They certainly come off. Ooh, kind of. Okay, yeah, outlook not so good on that one. The stickers don't want to come off, so I'll just go ahead and disassemble it and then mask all of that off for the painting. For disassembly, I've already made a crude drawing of where all the screws are going to go. Oh, awesome. No sweat now, just swell. Screw. Kind of want this out. That was pretty easy. I wanted to make a list of materials that I'm using for this, but to be honest, I don't know what I'm going to use yet. I'm going to kind of wing it, so I'll try to remember to make a list at the end, and if I forget to do that, I will put a list in the description. Oh. That's nice. Okay, so all these body screws are the same size, but it's these little guys that are a bit different. I think, maybe they're not. I'm just going to keep these screws with their appropriate knobs. Probably the easiest way to keep track of that. This one's actually molded in there. Why? Oh, come on, of all of the ones that had to be molded. And since this piece is going to be much easier to paint and weather as a separate piece, I'm going to try to pop these clips off. Unfortunately, these hinge pins are trapped, so those aren't coming out, and I'm just going to have to paint these two halves as is. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is mask off things like these orange bits and these stickers that I do not want to lose. Everything else is going to get coated with this Krylon Ultra Flat Black. This flat black's also going to go on these black knobs, and then I'm going to rub graphite powder on those so that they don't look like cheap plastic. As for this silver hinge, I'm going to be replacing this cheapo sticker with actual painted on hazard lines. Everything's been masked off. I lost the sticker right there to the masking tape, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I've got something special planned for this display here, so that lenticular is just going to get painted over. Now the in-game model has some screws and some rivets on it, so I've got some number 4 wood screws and some tiny brass brads. Now I'm going to take them out because I'm going to paint them separately and screw them in later. That way they look like separate pieces. Otherwise the paint is just going to fill the gap between them and it's going to look like one molded piece of plastic. I've got a few coats of the Krylon Ultra Flat Black on here as a primer, and I've masked off everything that I want to stay black. Some things that are too difficult to mask, I'm just going to have to paint with a brush, but that's okay. So the next step is coating everything with this Rustoleum nutmeg. According to the cap, the color is very close to the original color. It came out sort of glossy. I hadn't really decided if I wanted it glossy or satin, but I'm happy with it. So the next thing we're going to do is paint this bezel around the screen. I masked it off when I painted the dark earth color. So I'm going to leave the masking on the screen itself. And now I'm going to have to carefully mask off these lines because the black bezel is going to get a special coat of black wrinkle finish paint. I'm telling you, if you do a lot of Fallout props and you don't know what black wrinkle paint is, get yourself a can because this is very iconic for electronics from that era. Well, that was a disaster. The paint didn't even try to wrinkle in some places, and it turned out just looking like a shitty gloss black paint job. So I'm going to try redoing this, but before I do, I'm going to experiment with this paint a little bit and figure out just how to get it to wrinkle. What I need is the silver finish underneath the black and yellow hazard stripes that I'm going to paint. So if I give it a light dusting of my silver Krylon, it'll come out with a much more convincing metal finish. And then some silver leaf rub and buff on the edges will really complete the effect. All right, so with a really light dusting, you can see, hopefully, that it has almost like a pitted look to it. And I think that looks just fantastic. I'm going right up the town. The walls that hold me, I'm melting down. The streets and sidewalks on my playground. And it's going to get worn a lot on the top here from grabbing the latch and pulling on it. So the yellow is coming out way too bright. That's like a neon yellow. So I added just a tiny bit of red and a tiny bit of brown to make it more of like a cat tractor yellow. That's awesome. And now we can unmask it. See what we've got. Oh, we've got paint that didn't f***ing stick. Nice. That's kind of okay. I was thinking about a different way that I wanted to paint it anyways, so I'm gonna do that, and you'll see this again hopefully after it's gone much better. I think I'm gonna clean the surface with alcohol. That's probably why that didn't stick. So jump cut, ta-da, repainted, and this time the paint goes all the way around these edges. I think this looks a lot better and more accurate to the game. Now, how do we get this toothpaste off? Scrape away at it, I guess. Maybe I should have practiced this a bit before. You know, I'll be honest, I don't see what that toothpaste adds to this technique. I think I'm just scraping the paint off. Okay, well, it's got some chipping on it now. And when I go over that with some rub and buff, it should look even better, hopefully. And we're back. I've gone ahead and sanded these painted areas. I've done some experiments of my own, and the best wrinkle finish that I could get was 3 really heavy coats out of the spray can. I also tried it out of my airbrush, and that didn't do me any favors. So straight out of the rattle can, 3 heavy coats. I've also gone on the internet and researched tips and techniques to make this stuff work. And I learned several things. I learned it takes very heavy coats. Unlike regular painting where you try to cover the area with just enough paint so as you make sure not to get any runs or curtains, with this stuff, you need to apply the maximum amount of paint without getting runs and curtains. And you also want to apply a lot of heat between layers and after the final layer. So I've got this cardboard box and my trusty hair dryer to make a kind of incubator for it while each layer dries. Excelsior! We've achieved success with our wrinkle finish. But I think it's too glossy after a couple hundred years kicking around a vault and wasteland. So I'm gonna spray a very light dusting of Krylon clear flat just to knock down that gloss. And because it's so thick, because there's like 6 layers of the wrinkle paint on there right now, I'm gonna do it out of my airbrush just to keep it as thin as possible. Hopefully that looks different on the camera. It looks a lot more flat in person. Well, it looks like we had a blowout right here in our masking. Very happy with that wrinkle finish, even though it did blow out the masking tape right there. So the second unique thing that I want to do for this Pip-Boy is give it a screen that looks like glass. And to do that, I've got high gloss clear resin. It goes on really thick and it's self-doming, so this should give it the look of a glass CRT monitor. I think the reason why I've never seen anyone else do the fake glass screen with clear resin is because in order to do that, you need to paint over the old lenticular screen, or else you're going to get all 3 of these pictures in one because it ruins the lenticular effect. Plus that screen kind of looked like junk anyways, so I'm not sad that it's gone. Well, the faux glass came out pretty dang good, but it didn't dome. You can see on the edges, it climbed up the walls a little bit. I don't know if that has to do with the slope or with the wrinkle paint, but sadly I didn't get that dome that I was hoping for. And it's also full of very tiny air bubbles. All in all, pretty happy with that. This pretty much completes the painting, so I'm going to reassemble it and start weathering. My plan for these screws is to put a drop of this rust under the head. That way, when I screw them in, it will squish out just a little bit. The idea is that the paint would keep the metal from rusting, but everywhere that they drilled a hole to put a screw, there would be bare metal exposed. So it would stand to reason that moisture could get in there and start rusting it. And that rust would slowly push its way up and out. A little tape on the tip of your screwdriver will keep it from scraping paint off the heads of your screws. The super thin Tamiya flat black will go nicely into these vent things. Now I'm going to smear some of this greasy dark greenish black color in some of these corners and see if I can wipe most of it back out. As I was rubbing the graphite finish on this knob, I accidentally rubbed a bit on this corner here and discovered that it gives it a very, very cool, almost metallic-like finish. So I'm gonna rub this on all of the high spots to give it just a tiny bit of highlight on all these corners. Almost like the paint's rubbed off, but not quite. Honestly, I think that looks even better than rub and buff. All right, I guess I can put this latch back on now. The last step is adding wasteland sand. Of course, this thing is going to be dusty AF. Because if there's one thing I know about taking gear to a desert, it's that you can't keep it dust free. All done. As a final touch, I put some 6mm brown craft foam in the ends here just to finish those off. And yeah, really happy with this. I'm going to get right up this town. The walls that hold me, I'm melting down. I'm rising up like a mushroom down. I'm going to get right up this town. Damn it. Oh, there it goes.